What is going on, everyone? I am coming at you today with a video regarding all of the stats and details regarding my last cheat day. I know you guys have been waiting for it, so I am here to deliver. In this video, I plan to cover the 3 days following my cheat day, as well as a 10-day follow-up. I show you my weight, my physique, my body fat percentage, my blood glucose, and my blood pressure for all of the coming days after my cheat day. I'm also going to be taking it a step further and taking you guys through the physiology and the mechanistic pathways that kind of regulate these systems in your body. After a caloric surplus, your body will attempt to bring things back to homeostasis, and I'll also be going over the repercussions like water retention and the thing you guys all want to know about, how much fat did I gain? I also plan on getting into the psychological effects of having a cheat day, answering things like how are my cravings, was I still as food focused, how was my appetite and hunger, but it's a lot to go over, so I think I'm going to be saving it for another video, so stay tuned for that. Now we have a ton of stuff to get through, so if you want to jump around the video, there will be timestamps in the description box, but other than that, let's just get started. What is going on, guys? Today is the day after my cheat day. It's January 22nd, 9:14 in the morning. I'm going to show you what I'm looking like, how much I weigh, and all the measurements and all that fun stuff. So as you guys can see, my weight has gone up to 127.6 pounds. And this scale also measures body fat percentage, bone mass, muscle mass, and percent body water. It can program up to 8 people, so Jeff, Rashawn, and my sister and I all use it. It gives you a lot of information, which is great for tracking changes over time. It's always linked in the description box below with a 60% off discount, so check it out if you're interested. All right, guys, so this is what I look like. You guys know the day after. Soft here, and I'm retaining water and all that stuff, so. Getting back into this bikini after a cheat day is incredibly brave, so you're welcome. 100 over 67 today, so that's normal. Look at that. That's interesting. Okay, well. Now the first topic I want to go over is probably the least sexy topic of them all because I didn't see a lot of changes in this, and this is going to be my blood pressure. But I don't want to disregard negative data. Data is still data. I don't discriminate. So I wanted to touch on this, but I won't spend a lot of time on it. Blood pressure is commonly seen as a ratio of the systolic and diastolic pressure, representing the arterial pressure from ventricular contraction and relaxation respectively. And from what I've learned and understand about blood pressure, one of these 5 variables would have had to change substantially for me to have noticed a significant increase or decrease in my blood pressure. Now, considering on a regular basis, I do have a pretty healthy and balanced diet, I implement a regular exercise regimen, and I sleep pretty well, none of those variables were affected as a response of just an acute surplus. It's not surprising that I didn't really see any changes there. Good morning, beautiful people. Today is January 23rd. And as you saw, I'm 126.6 today, so I'm down a pound from yesterday. So things are going steadily back to normal. I ate normally yesterday. First, we can appreciate my dinosaur pajamas. All right, guys, so I apologize for someone's doing lawn outside, so it's a little bit distracting. But this is my physique. I look a little bit less watery. You can see more definition again. I'm having a very good day today because today I woke up with 200,000 subscribers, so today is a beautiful day. I'm very, very happy. I'm feeling really grateful, so thank you all so, so much. Ooh, it's 90. Hooray. It's almost back to normal, almost. It's much lower than it was yesterday, which obviously makes sense. The next topic I want to talk about is blood glucose, and this is the amount of circulating glucose in your blood as a result of a meal consumption. This is a very important process because your cells use glucose as its form of energy, which it is then taken into the cell and converted into adenosine triphosphate, or ATP. So getting blood glucose circulated and then distributed to the appropriate cells is a very important process, which then brings things back to normal normal levels. A normal fasted level when you first wake up in the morning of blood glucose is 70 milligrams per deciliter to 100 milligrams per deciliter, and after a meal, it's actually normal for it to be elevated up to 140 milligrams per deciliter. So after a large meal consumption, I think the night of my cheat day, it went all the way up to 128 milligrams per deciliter, but the following morning, it still was very elevated, and there's no surprise to that because from the night before, I was still probably digesting all of the food and still had circulating blood glucose in my system. And the mechanism that mediates the regulation of glucose is primarily through two pancreatic hormones, namely insulin and glucagon. However, since insulin is the most important one in response to after a meal, that is the one I'm going to be focusing on in this video. After you eat a meal, molecules like glucose are absorbed through digestion and into the bloodstream. Beta cells of the pancreas then secrete insulin. And insulin is key for stimulating the cells in your body to uptake glucose, increases the cellular rate that glucose is used for energy, or ATP, accelerates the formation of glycogen from glucose in the liver and skeletal muscle. And after all that, blood glucose levels do return to normal and all is well again. And as you can see, after my second day follow-up, things were starting to fall more into the normal ranges of blood glucose.
Hello. Okay. Today is January 24th, so now it's 3 days after my cheat day, something like that. Alrighty. I'm actually wearing a different bathing suit because I am trying to keep it interesting. This is what my body looks like. I'm trying to flex my legs. Feeling pretty good, feeling pretty normal. Don't feel as watery today.
And the next topic that I want to talk about is water retention, because as you know, the following day when that scale moved up a few pounds, it's a result of not only food storage and a little bit of fat gain, but mostly from water retention. Now, there are a few factors that would increase water retention, namely being a spike in carbohydrate consumption and sodium intake. And there are other factors that manipulate water retention, things like levels of stress and cortisol, as well as the female menstrual cycle. But for the scope of this video, I'm just going to talk about sodium and carbohydrate consumption. Now, after analyzing MyFitnessPal from my cheat day, I noted that I consumed 949 grams of carbohydrates. Now, it's really important to remember that with stored carbohydrates, you can also store between 3 and 4 grams of water with each gram of stored carbohydrate. So as you can imagine, your body does store a lot of water. That's not even including the water that I would retain from the sodium consumption from that day. And like I previously talked about glucose and insulin, your body has a way of regulating the sodium and water balances in your body, and this is primarily modulated through your kidneys. Water retention can result from your body's attempt to dilute the excess sodium by retaining water intracellularly. And if this retention gets very high, it can leak into the space between your cells, or the extracellular compartments, which can at times even cause edema. Either way, in or out of your cells, it does take a little bit of time for that excess water to be filtered out and excreted. And this mechanism is mediated by the kidneys, which regulate the blood volume by adjusting the amount of water that is lost in the urine with the help of a few hormones, such as angiotensin II, aldosterone, and antidiuretic hormone in the glomerulus. So collectively, between all those carbs and all that sodium, I did store a lot of water. However, after a couple of days, as you can see, it will be eventually filtered out.
So today is the final day that I have to do this. It is actually February 1st, so it's more than a week from my cheat day because I was traveling, I didn't have my scale and all that stuff, but I am doing it now, and it's been about like 10 days since my cheat day, so you're getting a 10-day value.
Okay, so moving on to the stuff that you guys are probably really interested in is how much fat gain or hypothetical fat could I have gained from eating 8,000 calories? And before we hop into a little bit of math, I want to explain a few concepts first that will dictate how much fat I could or should gain. Now, these factors are 1, TDEE, or total daily energy expenditure, my starting body composition, the macronutrient composition of the food that I ate on my cheat day, and lastly, the level of glycogen glycogen depletion that my body was in. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is TDEE, or total daily energy expenditure, and that is made up of 4 components: resting metabolic rate, or RMR, the thermic effect of food, the thermic effect of activity, and lastly is your non-exercise activity thermogenesis, or NEAT. Of these 4 components, 2 play a big part in fat gain, which are RMR and NEAT. So those are the 2 that I'm going to be talking about more at length. So RMR, or your resting metabolic rate, is the number of calories you burn just by being alive or just sitting there. So that actually varies dramatically from person to person. And a common misconception is that lean folks actually have a higher RMR, which is actually wrong. RMR actually increases with weight. So more obese or overweight people have a higher RMR than lean individuals. And this is because of something very simple. It takes less energy to run less body. NEAT, or non-exercise activity thermogenesis, represents all the calories you burn in non-formal forms of exercise. Now, originally it was defined as things like fidgeting, moving around, sitting up, sitting down, things you do just subconsciously. However, it's kind of expanded in the literature, and now all non-formal forms of exercise are things like walking to your car or taking the stairs, taking your groceries in from the car, things like that. So it's actually been really interesting that in recent years, NEAT has been a very, very large predictor of weight gain and obesity. It actually has a huge impact on how many calories you burn throughout the day. And it kind of makes sense though, because say for instance, I eat a lot of food, which makes me kind of move around a little bit more. If I burn, say, 1 extra calorie per minute, well, 1 extra calorie per minute, per 60 minutes in an hour, per 24 hours in a day can add up to hundreds to even thousands of calories per day. So NEAT is a very important part of this energy balance equation and can sometimes be even more important than the energy that you're burning in formal exercise at the gym. The next thing that will dictate how much fat that I could possibly gain is my starting body composition. So it's been shown that somebody who is leaner actually has less adipocytes. So I have less potential storage for fat than somebody who has more percent body fat than me, who actually has more adipocytes than I do. I have a certain level or threshold of capacity acutely. However, over the long term, everybody has the same unlimited capacity for fat storage. The other thing that's going to play a big role in how much fat that I gain is what my macronutrient composition was the day that I had my cheat day. So these are my macronutrients that I had the day of my cheat day. This actually plays an acute role here because fat and carbs are stored differently. Carbs are actually used as an energy source and are not readily stored as fat, but can indirectly cause fat storage, and fat can be very readily converted to storage. Now, if I had more dietary fat on this cheat day, almost all of that is going to be stored as fat, whereas carbohydrate is not acutely stored as fat. First, you replenish your glycogen stores, and then after that, the excess will be used as fuel. But like I said, this can indirectly cause fat gain because if you're utilizing carbohydrate as fuel, then you're not using your fat as fuel. So any dietary fat coming in is going to be immediately stored. So from this information, I'd like to give you guys a rough calculation of how much fat I could have gained from this caloric surplus. So let's jump into a little bit of math. So for me, an estimated TDEE is 1,600 calories. So this is the amount of calories I can consume without gaining any weight, which are considered my maintenance calories. So with a starting value of 8,021 calories, which is how many calories I ate that day, I'll subtract 1,600. And this leaves me with a surplus of 6,421 calories. Now we can account for the thermic effect of food. And since this is the macronutrient breakdown of my cheat day, the estimated thermic effect of food will follow this equation, and this results in an increase of 17.68%. So 17.68% of a 6,421 calorie surplus would yield about 1,135 calories lost as heat. So from this, 6,421 minus 1,135 equals 5,286 calories available for storage. And as I mentioned, increasing your caloric intake can also yield increases in your NEAT. Just based off of what the literature tells us, on average, an increase of 1,000 calories yields about a 300 calorie increase in NEAT. So I'm gonna err a little bit more on the side of conservative and say that I burned an extra 100 calories per 1,000 extra calories that I ate. That would equal 642 calories burned just by extra subconscious movement and fidgeting throughout the day, leaving us with 4,644 calories left for storage. So of my macronutrient breakdown, 38.8% of it was made of dietary fat. And again, erring on the side, a little bit more on the conservative side and saying all of that 38.8% was stored as fat, adding in a little bit more of those calories being stored as fat. So let's just say of the remaining calories left for storage, 50% was stored as fat. This leaves us with 4,644 times 50% equals 2,322 calories left for storage. And further dividing that by 9 calories per gram will equal 258 grams of just fat. And this actually equates to a grand total of 0.57 pounds of fat. Now, if you've seen my 10,000 calorie challenge, then you know that I actually did a scientific study where I had my percent body fat actually measured with ultrasound. So I'll leave that study in the description box below, so please go check it out if you're interested in that. Hypothetically speaking, if I did gain this a little bit more than half a pound of fat, it's definitely not the end of the world, but it's also something not to bat an eye at. However, as I've mentioned before, if you guys have been following me, you guys know that I'm currently lean bulking. So I'm actually eating in a caloric surplus on a regular basis. So I'm actively trying to gain a little bit of muscle as a result of eating a little bit more, which comes with gaining a little bit of fat. So I've already kind of mentally accepted the fact that I am going to be gaining some fat over these few months that I've been currently bulking. If you're interested more about lean bulking, or if you just don't really know what it is or how to implement it, I'll link a video down below that I talk about all of that stuff. So go ahead and watch that. And another thing that I'd like to mention, after I have one of these cheat days, I resume life as normal. And I think that's a really important thing to mention. I think I mentioned it in my first cheat day, but if you didn't watch it, then you may not know that the following days coming up, I resume everything as normal. I don't change anything. I do change my activity in the gym just a little bit because I do feel more energized as a result of eating a little bit more food. So I might push myself a little bit harder in the gym, but other than that, everything resumes as normal. I just really wanted to clear up the utility of these cheat days because I definitely don't binge and then restrict. It's just really refreshing sometimes to have a day where I just eat whatever I want. You guys know that I can put down some food, so you know, every now and then for me it's a little bit of fun. Alright guys, so that was a lot of information. It seems like you guys like long form content from me, so that's why I decided to do this video. It probably was a little bit long, but I really hope that you learned something. Stay tuned for that follow-up video on the psychological effects of having cheat days. And I'd also like to do a little bit more interesting stuff with my cheat days. I plan on continuing to do them. I might do some where I eat predominantly carbs, or I eat predominantly fat, or I just kind of mix it up and do a full day of eating a lot of really healthy food and kind of just see how much I can eat from there. But you know, it's all gonna be, it's just for fun, and I think that it's gonna add a lot of value to anyone who would like to try this and implement it into their own life. I will have some regularly scheduled fitness content as well, so stay tuned for that. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you are new, I'd love to have you, and I'll see you in a video very soon. Bye.
Have you ever seen anyone take their blood pressure and blood glucose in a bikini before? This will be the first time. I'm glad I can be your first.